Hi, welcome to eLecture Online. Tonight we shall be talking about quadratic equations. Quadratic equations are equations of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, where a is not equal to 0, but b and c are constant. Now, every quadratic equation can be solved using these methods written on the board. We have the factorization method, completing the square method, formula method, and graphical method. But for the sake of the YX student that will be taking this tutorial online, we'll be considering graphical method when we'll be talking about graphs on its own, where we'll get to know about trigonometric graphs, where we'll talk about linear graphs and quadratic equation graphs. We'll talk about it there. But in this video, we'll be taking time to solve problems with factorization methods, completing the square method, and formula method. And also, there are other forms that quadratic equations can take. Like, for example, some quadratic equations can come in the form of indices. Some can come in the form of binary operations. By the time we solve them, we'll see quadratic equations coming out. So in this video, we'll be doing justice to that. So let's begin. Now, like I've said, this is an example of a quadratic equation. I want to use factorization method to solve. Don't forget that quadratic equations come in this form. And why it is called a quadratic equation is because that the variable here has the highest power of 2. And if you check this equation, it is called a polynomial. So every polynomial of degree 2, like you have seen here, the highest is called a quadratic equation. So let's go to our problem. This is the problem we have on the board. 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 is equals to 0. We are to solve using factorization method. But before we go further, I want to make it categorically clear that not all quadratic equations are factorizable. Not all of them. So if a quadratic equations all are not factorizable, how do I know if a quadratic equation is factorizable? It's very easy. What you need to do is to find, if you are able to find that the square root of b squared minus 4ac gives you a perfect square, or the square root gives us, the result of the square root gives us a whole number. When it gives us a whole number, then it is factorizable. And we can be able to test this. For learning's sake, we're able to test this. So let's test. We know that if we compare this equation with the general form, you will discover that a is equals to 2. If we compare this and this, then b is our negative 3, then c is our negative 2. So let's plug in this into this, and if we're able to have a perfect square, or the square root is the whole number, then it is factorizable. Now let's go. So let's have that the square root b squared, that is minus 3 squared minus 4 times a is 2 times c is minus 2. So very good. Let's do this quickly. Minus 3 squared is what? It's 9. You got it. Then minus. Now you have to be very careful. Look, this sign and this sign, and they are multiplying. There is going to be a change of sign, so it's going to be positive. Now, how do I know? Minus 4 times 2 is minus 8. Then minus 8 times 2, minus 2. That will give us positive 16. That will give us positive 16. And if you check, 16 plus 9 is the square root of what? 25. And if you check, 25 is a perfect square, and the square root of 25 is a whole number 5. So we can conclude that this quadratic equation is factorizable. Let's begin. Now, in order to solve any problem that has to do with quadratic equation, having known that it's factorizable, what you need to do is to multiply this term by this term. And when you do that, you have a certain number. Multiply this term by this term. When you do that, you have negative 4x squared. Negative 4x squared. So now you will look for two terms or factors that if you multiply, you will have this product. And if you add, you will have this middle term. So what are the two factors? The two factors that we can multiply, one, we have minus 2, we have minus 4x and x. We'll be able to have this, we'll have minus 2x and 2x. We'll be able to have this and what and other factors, right? But not two, one of them is wrong. One of them is wrong. Why? Because if we are able to add them and we are not getting the center term, it means it is wrong. So obviously this term here is wrong. So I'm going to wipe it away. We don't need it. This is what we need. Because how do I know? If I multiply this and this, I'll have negative 4x squared. But if I add it, I'll have the center term, right? So we have minus 4x times x, we'll have negative 4x squared, which rhymes to this. Then if I have minus 4x plus x, it will give us negative 3x. So it has, these are the factors because it satisfies the condition stipulated. So what we are going to do next is to represent this middle term by those two factors, minus 4x and x. Then we simplify. Then we are going to have this 2x squared. Don't forget that we are replacing the middle term by those factors. Minus 4x plus x, then minus 2 is equals to 0. Next, what we do, we group them together. Let's have 2x squared minus 4x is 1, then plus, open bracket, x minus 2 is equals to 0. Now, if you check, what can divide, what is a common term that can divide these two numbers here? Absolutely, is 2x. So 2x squared into 2x will be left with x, minus 2x into this will be left with 2, right? So what can I divide this term that I have the same term? Because these boxes must be the same, is 1. So that x divided by 1 is x, minus 2 divided by 1 is 2, is equals to 0. So these two terms must be the same with correspondence to signs. So we'll pick one of them, x minus 2, and what is outside? 2x plus 1. 2x plus 1 equals to 0. So it's either x minus 2 is equals to 0 or 2x plus 1 is equals to 0. So let me use this place. Sorry, the space is very little. So from here, you will discover that x is equals to 2, while 2x is equals to negative 1 from this part, so that x is equals to negative 1 all over 2. Now, I want you to be very confident enough. You know, some students can solve and be contemplating, are these the correct answer? Absolutely, you'll be able to know if they are correct. What you need to do is to plug in these values back into this quadratic equation. If it is able to render it 0, they are correct. So you pick the first factor, which is x, plug in x here. If it is able to give you 0, it means that it's correct. So from here, we know that 2 into, what is x? Let's